I know this is not typically the type of content I make on this channel. Usually it is more about how to persuade, how to influence people's subconscious mind, how to use language patterns or sleight of mouth to influence others. However, I think this type of video is really also important because most people who try to learn how to communicate, how to find more intelligent conversations, many of them, maybe not all of them, but maybe many of them have suffered from one extremely toxic relationship, or they lost somebody, not in terms of dying, but in terms of they lost because they could not communicate with that person anymore, or they have been fired from a job where there was a lot of toxic encounters, either with their boss or with people at the job. So whenever people start to learn about influence and persuasion skills, most of the time there has been at one point one extremely dramatic or even broken relationship somewhere, either a romantic one or just maybe business partners or maybe with your customers, anything but something really tough, or in the family, something really tough that hasn't been dealt with. And as long as those things, those wounds, those hurt relationships are not healed, many things won't move on in your life, because the past needs to get handled before the future can accelerate or whatever. That's why I wanted to touch on that topic slightly. Losing somebody, technically, even if it is just a breakup, not dying, but just a breakup, and even if it is not romantic, it might be with somebody in your family, somebody at your ex-job that you really used to consider like a friend, but that person stabbed you in the back somehow. Those things can leave scars, and according to some more spiritual teachings, it is almost like an energetic link that has been cut or damaged between you and that person, which means those things can really stay on your mind for way too long and keep aggravating as long as you don't heal that relationship. In many cases, though, you won't be able to directly go to the person and either ask them for explanations or apologize, or both at the same time. In many cases, it is not that simple and you can't directly communicate with that person because maybe he or she does not want to talk to you anymore, or maybe you know that person is inherently toxic and there is no way you want to rekindle anything with that person, but you still suffer from the scars of what happened. That is how we are going to handle this, from the inside, from what happens inside your head, much more than what you do in your communication. The very first step is to kind of counterintuitive, I know, it is to focus on what has been, underline has been, positive in that relationship. Sometimes when a romantic relationship or anything where you had a strong connection with somebody, when it ends up badly, we tend to try to suppress and negate all the positive things that made us in the beginning want to connect with that person. And if at any point you wanted to connect with that person, that means there has been at least one positive thing that you benefited from, that you enjoyed, even if it was only in the past, but something that you have enjoyed for real in that relationship. So the first step is going to accept, to maybe close your eyes in some meditative process and say, I acknowledge there was this thing I liked, or this thing I was hoping for when I met that person. I was hoping to experience this or that with that specific person. Maybe it did not happen, but at least you had some positive expectations, or you really had some great moments that faded away in the end, but you had some great moments. And the first part is to accept all of that, because if you try to negate literally all the positive things that have existed with that person, then you are going to create resistance in your mind with two parts of yourself in conflict. You will create resistance in your mind, and that resistance prevents the letting go of that old relationship. So it will keep hammering in your head and constantly wake you up in your dreams or whatever, because it hasn't been solved, because you try to suppress potentially positive things. That is the first step. Then we are going to lead into explaining, all the things you haven't been able to express. This one may be done only in your head or by writing down. I would recommend writing down, even if you destroy the paper later, but at least having some tangible support to clarify all the wounded emotions that may not be completely healed. Once you have acknowledged there has been indeed positive sides in this relationship, you are going to imagine that person appears maybe somewhere in the room, maybe very far away if you need to keep some security, some distance from that person, wherever you want. Just picture that person somewhere, at least somewhere where that person could hear you if you were speaking, and there they remain silent for good, and you just say all the things in your head or writing down, all the things you wished you could have said earlier to that person. All the things you either didn't have the courage to say, or the things you didn't know how to say, because it was way too complicated, way too many factors at the same time. Whatever the reason, all the things that could not be let out, you pull them out from your head. And that person is, in your imagination right now, forced to remain silent and to listen to you until you are done. Make sure to end with a conclusion. This and that happened, therefore you end this monologue. Whatever you have to say in your head to that person, you conclude with something. It is not an open conversation here at this point. It is you say all the things you haven't been able to say. It has to come out in one way or another. So you pull all of that out of yourself, of your mind, of your gut feelings, and you conclude. As a result, this is my decision, or this is what I want, or whatever is the conclusion, you conclude with something concrete. Then the third step is this time to let space for a response, some answer. This time you reverse the roles and you remain silent, quiet, and you let that person, in your mind obviously, express himself or herself, and you let that person say, as a response, whatever comes out. It might be anything. It doesn't have to be positive or negative, it can be anything. Just what would be a response if you had the chance to leave that situation for real. If that thing had been real, if you had indeed been able to communicate with that person in a healthy context and environment. Then, what would be their response in that case? After you have said all the things you had to get out of yourself and you have provided your conclusion, what would they say as a response to you? Because many times we just get stuck into our own narratives about what should or should not have happened and what this person did wrong and why they were a douchebag, whatever, and then we just loop in circles. It never ends, it never gets to an end, because it keeps looping and looping and looping, and any minor event in your environment or any other person who might remind us of this toxic person might just get the whole monologue going again. I hate this person because this happened and because she betrayed me or whatever. You need to put an end to this. So once you have said all the things that you wanted to say, then you let that person, he or she, respond, and that way you stop the narrative and you end the loop of endless conflicts. Then, final step, maybe the most important of them all, and the most difficult if you haven't been going through the other ones first. The last final step is to get a mediator, some third person in that context, who may be imaginary, doesn't have to be a real person, it can be a real person, just somebody really wise that you let appear in your mind, somebody extremely wise and more mature than you and that person are together, somebody much more mature and advanced in life, maybe some spiritual being if you are a spiritual person, whatever you want. You just get that person appearing in your head and you let that person provide a compromise, provide a solution, or at least propose a solution. Doesn't mean that solution will be the right one. At least you investigate for solutions, for, okay, where do we go from there? Where do I go from there? And what do I honestly, sincerely want with that person? What do I expect from now, from that person in the future or whatever? And do I expect to meet that person again? Yes, no. There is no good answer or a wrong answer. It is really up to you. Do I expect to have anything in common with that person again? Yes or no? And if yes, then what could be the compromise? If no, perfect. Then what do you want else? What else do you want from your life? What else do you expect now that this person is gone from now? What do you expect for your life to get to from there? So that was a small process established based on all the therapy sessions I had related to that topic. Many times it took different forms. Sometimes it was about romantic breakups. Sometimes it was about a friendship that really ended up badly. Usually those steps in different orders or with some added details are really helpful to anyone who needs to get past some old conflict or some phase of life that they have trouble getting to an end. If you want to discover some more things about how your mind can heal and how you can develop inner resources to face life much more easily, you have a document down below called The 3 Fundamentals of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and those ones are not part of it, but you will find many other resources for how you can use your own mind for your benefit. Instead of having your mind working against you, you will have different ways to rekindle both together, your unconscious mind and your conscious mind, so that you keep going in life in a smoother way. Not constantly being in conflict with yourself about everything, starting to incorporate more of the steps, of the techniques and tools that can help you get better no matter where you are in life. As I said, it is really such an important topic because most people who want to learn about language patterns or persuasion or how to seduce or whatever, they have been wounded at one point by at least one person. And that is why they try to become more eloquent or try to defend themselves verbally. So really take care of that. It is extremely important. And I will tell you, see you again in the next video whenever it pops up.